What's up, guys? Sitting here playing a little bit of 3-6 heads up. I know a lot of y'all in stocks poker don't play a lot of heads up. But what a heads up video really enabled me to do is it lets you watch me get a specific read on the villain and make decisions based on that. Since No Limit's such an information sparse environment, a 6 max table, you really don't get a lot of interaction with the other players, and everything is going to be quote unquote standard lines. So what this should allow me to do is I've been playing this guy for 68 hands or so, so about I guess 20 minutes, and he's won one big pot where I check raised him all in on the turn when I had a pair and a flush draw, and he ended up having the flush. He's playing a really unorthodox style. I'm not exactly sure what to make of it. He's 45-8. You know, he limps a ton on the button, doesn't raise much. He's re-raised me once or twice. Here's a spot where I'm actually going to check raise the turn on him. I think he's been checking behind and then betting. He's trying to win a lot of the small pots like this. And I'm playing pretty lag, 55-53 so far into the match. Alright, queen 4 off on the button. You know, it's whatever. Pre-flop, you can raise, you can fold it. Here I'm just making a C-bet, 25 into 35. Most of the big pots have gone my way, other than that one hand. I value bet him. He's lit me up once thus far. He slow played queens pre-flop once and paid me off on the river when I value bet him with top pair kings. So that's really what's happened so far in the match. The villain, he definitely knows who I am. He mentioned in the chat box something earlier that would indicate that. So if he doesn't know who I am, he at least knows I'm, you know, a regular and winning player. So and it looked like he was playing. I saw him on another heads up table, but I don't know if he's just playing 2 tables or how many tables he is actually playing. I got Jack 3 off. I get re-raised here. He's not re-raising a bunch. This is a hand that I would 4-bet, and I like to 4-bet with, just since it really has no post-flop value whatsoever. But since I expect his re-raising range to be pretty tight, that I'm just going to pitch it. And he very well may be re-raising air and limping, slow playing monsters on the button. He re-raised me once earlier with, where he limp min re-raised me. So I'm not exactly sure what to make of his range. I'm still trying to figure it out. But he has a very, you know, unorthodox style, to say the least. He doesn't seem to make too many errors post-flop yet. So I really don't have a good read on him. But we'll develop that as we go throughout the match. A heads up, I like to play heads up. Really, the biggest thing, the most important thing, is being able to tune into the tempo of the match, and you know, base your hand ranges off of that, or base your opponent's hand ranges off of that. And, you know, that just takes a lot of time and experience to acquire. Now he doesn't seem to be putting up much resistance on the flop. His check raise flop so far in this match is he hasn't check raised the flop a single time. So I'm able to continuation bet pretty relentlessly, you know, and that works out pretty well for me. A guy who's not going to fight for too many pots on the flop. You know, that's excellent. I can raise and he'll call, and I'm able to take it down without much resistance. That works out well, you know. All right, here again, you know, he's limped on the button. He's limping here a pretty huge range. I think I'm just going to check, and you know, if he bets small again, I'm just going to call him. And I'm actually going to lead out on the river here. I bet once a little small bet and he min raised, and I folded. It was kind of a smallish blocking bet. But a lot of times what I do heads up is I take a bunch of different lines to start the match and kind of prod and poke at the villain to see where I can, you know, find a weakness, something that's exploitable. All right, here again, you know, this is a board that should hit his range pretty good, and so I'm going to c-bet and play for stacks here. He's a smooth call. All right, I still think I have the best hand, so I'm going to make. Just going to fire a second barrel here for value. If he check raises me, I'm obviously going with the hand. He check calls again. I still think I have the best hand, so I'm going to bet. I snap potted the river earlier for value, so I think he may think this time that it's for value again, so I'm going to make what appears to be a semi-value blocking bet. Or excuse me, I did not state that well at all. What would look like a value bet. All right, and he folded it. He's just playing, again, has played very passively out of position, or very passively in general. Lots of check calls, not putting up a lot of aggression. So that's good. All right, limps on the button. I got Queen 8 suited. I'm going to jack him up here. All right, since he only got 400, this is probably a hand that I'm willing to play for stacks with on the flop if he raises me here. I've been pretty aggressive with my double barrels. You know, that last hand too. This is a spot sometimes where I'll check and try to check raise all in, but I'm actually going to I'm bet 66 just like I did on the last hand. And if he raises me, I'm definitely going with a hand here. Pretty much committed myself. If he calls the turn, I was going to value bet the river. All right, ace 8 off. That's an open for me on the button. But you pre-flop in heads up no limit. It doesn't really matter too much. You can do a lot of things. But the key is to really understand how your pre-flop play affects your post-flop play. And I play, depending on the players, I can play tight, I can play loose. I just really try to get in there and fill it out. Against a player like this, I'm going to be opening a lot of buttons. You know, I probably opened, I would say 90% of my buttons so far in this match. The reason being that he's not rebetting an awful lot, and he is not, you know, he's calling flops and just either check calling. He's not putting up a lot of resistance. So I'm able to raise and take pots down. All right, here I'm going to lead out 7 into 11. He raises me. I'll have a little bit of a decision to make. Turn comes a deuce. I'm just going to keep betting. This is kind of a semi-bluff here. And he calls me. I expect him to be looking me up on this river as well. You know, I'd put him on ace, probably a big ace here. I think a deuce would have raised me on the turn, so I'm going to bet 45. All that is a pretty scary river for him. He may end up folding it. His win to showdown is 13 so far, so he's really not showing down a ton of hands. You know, that was a bad river for him. So I expect he's going to have to be wanting to show a handout. You know, he let me up light once earlier, like I said, and was bad. But I really expect this guy's going to want to show down a hand in the pretty soon. So I got to keep that in mind. And I'll look to value bet him and not run too many bluffs. Hopefully, I can keep flopping hands and stay in control here. All right, he has not reloaded, so he may only be playing this one buy-in and calling it quits. And if that is the case, I'll try to open up another table and see if I can't find some more action. Alright, ace deuce. I'm just checking, giving up on this flop. You know, that pretty much smacks his range. There's no sense in contesting this flop at all. I don't know what this is. Maybe he's just, I'm actually going to open up the lobby and see if I can. See how many other tables he's on. Yeah, he looks like he's playing one other heads up table. And that's it. So I don't know if he's a regular. I don't really play this limit often, so I don't know if he's a regular or what the deal is, or maybe he's just decided to dabble today into heads up. But that's always something you want to look at, see if you can glean any extra information from the poker lobby or anything, really. You know, I'll look for guys when I'm playing higher stakes. Some guys will play, you know, just a gazillion tables, and if they'll play me heads up, otherwise normally a pretty tough match, and the guy's playing 5-6 tables along with this heads up match, which some guys will do, then you know, I'll go ahead and play the guy because their ability to analyze the information is going to be dramatically decreased. So, and as you move up into higher limits, you really got to look for ways to get edge in any way possible. All right, here I'm just going to check behind. This is kind of for pot control, and again, I'm just checking behind. If he checks to me on the river, I'll probably toss out a value bet. I don't know how many weaker queens are looking me up. But a 10 may look me up. And I'm going to chop with some queens, but yeah, I'm going to toss out a bet. And this also has what, Bryce called once the bastard effect. Is you really just keep the heat on the villain, and you're constantly applying pressure to him. They never get to see right there, he doesn't get to see my hand show down. He doesn't know, did I bluff him, did I value bet him? And it just really keeps the heat on him, and hopefully you can use that to, that aggression and leverage it into future hands. Here I'm just going to, again, check behind. If he bets out here, which he'll probably do, I'll just give it up to him. He checked, and this is a spot where I really have no, and he just snapped 3/4 pot of it on the river. Heads up, sometimes that's a spot where, yeah, I think a continuation bet's fine, but I'm just going to give him one. I've been really pounding on him. You got to let guys win one once or twice. Here I'm just going to check, call, evaluate. If he bets again, I'm done. Since he's not too aggressive, I think we may be checking this down some. He may even check like king high or something silly. Yeah, like jack 10 down. Yeah, with guys that limp a lot, and if you're used to playing in real aggressive heads-up matches, and guys that limp a lot on the button, sometimes I've seen that just really tilt some players. They want to play an aggressive match, raise, re-raise, pot, pot, pot. And when players should really like to slow down the pace, it really tilts them. So maybe that's kind of his angle here. I don't really know. Here, this guy's not going to be folded to me, I don't think. There's a ton of draws out there that he may have, but I'm just going to head and give it up. He has 24. That obviously looks like a blocking bet, but again, I'm going to let him take the pot. Alright, king 10 here. I'm going to open it up. If he limps, I'll pop him. I get 18. With this, sometimes when we're deeper, usually when we're deeper, I'd probably make it 21 there on average. But with the stack size, I don't think it matters too much. Here, I'm just firing off a continuation bet. And if he calls, turn bricks, which it doesn't. I'm actually, I'm actually going to, I was thinking about, my plan initially was to check raise all in on the turn. However, that's not really a good turn card. It would increase his betting range, definitely, if he floated. But I'm actually going to bet fold this one. But this is a pretty good match when you get somebody who's playing this style and is not playing aggressive, not contesting a lot of pots. It's really good. That's usually really good action for you. Heads up. Right here, and I got jack 10 off. I'm going to jack it up. That's a good flop for me to fire out on. I'm going to do so and bet 25 into 35, which has been my standard continuation bet thus far. He min races here. I really expect this is probably going to be an ace. This is a hand he's going with most often, I think. He hasn't put up any resistance. His flop aggression's 1.2. He actually, after 22 attempts, he hasn't raised a flop yet. So I'm going to fold. Alright, jack 8 suited, that's an open. I'm just going to check this one. Alright, here's a spot where I'm basically just going to check and call and lead the turn. Basically what I'm trying to do there, the reason I decided to check and call and lead the turn, if he has a hand, if he has some kind of draw, I expect this guy to check it behind. He may call me down there with a deuce. And also, I think I may, even though the villain is indeed passive, I may get him to bluff raise me since that flop just looks like it's so much air. Already check calls pretty quick. Oh, and he checks the river. Actually, well, I'm really tempted to value bet this. but he's not showing down a ton. I think small pairs between 4s and queens are definitely in his range here, like 6s, 7s, 5s. He's not re-raising much of that pre-flop. I think all weaker 4s do pay me off. I'm actually going to, well, it looks like, yeah, he had 7s. Against some guys, I would definitely be value betting that river, and I think it's pretty close, but against this particular player, I don't think that he very well may not pay me off with any 4, number one, and then number two, that there's so many hands, better hands, that are going to be checking that river and calling. All right, here I'm just going to try to check this one down. He bets the river, I'm folding the hand. Alright, so I've done that a few times now. I've just kind of checked and gave up. Bet the flop and check and gave up. So I'm going to have to balance my range with betting the flop with big hands and then checking the turn behind. We'll see if we can't do that in the upcoming hands. Yeah, against this guy, again, I'm just going to be raising pretty much every single button, almost. You know, I'll fold 1 or 2 here and there, but for the most part, I'm going to be raising every single button. I'm actually just going to take a stab at this one. I've done this a few times with made hands. He turbo mucks it. I don't want him to be able to limp and just take, you know, every pot off of me. So I've got to mix it up there. He min raises. We'll see a flop with my 6-4. He bets 12. He bets half pot, so I'm going to see. Call 1 street. Now this is not really a good turn card. He bets 12 again, which is such a really weird bet. That's almost a call me please bet, but since I do have a straight draw, I'm actually going to call him. Now the question is, do I want to lead out here? And I'm going to bet 55 for value and into 71 and fold to a shove. And he had a better 2-pair. He's really not putting up, and he bet really small on that turn. I'm not sure if that was the way he played that 2-pair. I don't know if he was scared of the flush or if he was just trying to, like, you know, sug me in. I don't know what to make of that. He has a very unorthodox style. But he doesn't seem to be running too many bluffs or doing anything else like that. So it's basically just keep the pressure on and pick up enough pots off of him. And see if we can't win a big one here and there. Alright, I raised King 8. Yeah, he's not putting up much resistance at all, so I'll just keep applying pressure and whittle this guy down. Alright, if he limps here, I'm definitely raising my 9s. Alright, since he's not putting up too much resistance, just firing off C-bets on most flops and play pretty standard. Alright, he checks here again. I'm not going to take a stab at it. I think he's going to be calling me with most of his range here. Yeah, and I think he was definitely looking me up with King 8, so. Alright, 10-7, raise it up, firing, continuation bet. Again, kind of sticking to the same game plan strategy that I have there. Alright, he limps, and I've got aces, and that's definitely a raise. And firing, again, continuation bet. Alright, this is the board that's going to crush this range, and I'm not contesting this flop at all. I'm just going to check it down with him. Alright, I got 8-4. You know, heads up, really a big leak, and even at, you know, higher stakes games in general, but especially heads up, guys that come into heads up games and play just like their 6-max game where they raise and they continuation bet, you know, 90% of the time, just continuation bet. And, you know, I am doing that here in this video, but I do think the specific game conditions warrant it. However, against an aggressive player who's going to be check raising you a bunch, they're just going to call, and the fact of the matter is you don't hit many flops. And a good player knows that, and they're just going to call and start check raising you all the time, putting you in bad spots. So I see a lot of guys who are normally winning, you know, 6-max players. They'll come into the heads up arena and they'll make that mistake. And that's a mistake I made when I first started playing heads up. And it really used to tilt me against, you know, these aggressive players who would just constantly come after me. Alright, here, just keeping the pressure on, firing a C-bet. You know, that's a flop that a lot of guys will come after you with. But against this particular player, I think a C-bet's fine. Alright, he checks it behind. I'm just going to bet the minimum. And I'm going to value bet this river. Bet 16 into 23. He folds pretty quick. You know, I think a 9's going to be looking me up there some, so I might actually should have check called that one, see if I can induce a bluff. But, you know, he's not real aggressive, and he'll probably check behind, you know, like all his busted draws there. So I think that one's pretty close. Alright, he raises on the button. Sometimes I'll be raising queen 10, but he's just not raising much, so I'm going to call and see what the flop comes down. And the question is, you know, we're getting shorter stack. Do I want to play a big pot here? But since he checks behind, that's normally a pot control move. So I'm going to look to get 2 streets of value. And that's definitely a card that he would think I would bluff at. So again, betting for value, 2 streets of value. And he shoves on me, which is unfortunate. You know, if he played a flush draw like that, you know, it'd be really weird. It'd be, you know, a way I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind that at all. However, I think this guy's just not bluffing enough, and that's pretty much the nuts always. So I'm folding my hand. This villain really has, you know, the tricky, trappy mindset. And with a relatively low bluffing frequency, I'm just not going to be looking that cat up. Alright, here, again, I'm going to stick the double barrel. That's 66 and 87 and take it down. Alright, here's a spot where I'm just going to be checking and giving up. Actually, if I had made my flush on that river, I think I would have definitely check raised him. If he limps, I think I'm going to raise him up with the 10-7 suited. Again, you can see my stats. I'm playing very aggressive so far. He min raised. That was a weak hand last time. And you know, I'm not re-raising many pots either. He checked behind with a seemingly good hand last time, so I'm not going to contest him here. Alright, 7-9, I'm going to fold it. Alright, now he may be opening this game up. We'll see. Maybe he was just trying to play real tight there for a little bit, and now he's going to come back with some aggression. Or perhaps I've run into hands. Alright, sorry about that. I got the phone ringing here at the house, but I'm not going to answer it. Hopefully one of my roommates will pick it up and grab it. Alright, 8-6 suited. It's a definite open on the button. Again here, firing off a continuation bat. I've double barreled him a couple times, and I'm not going to stick it in here. A lot of draws, and you know that hits his range pretty good. And I'm just going to check. He has King 10. Yeah, he's not making really any thin value bets, and he's really looking to kind of play rope-a-dope and try to induce bluffs from me. Alright, leading out for the minimum. If he calls, I'm just going to check. Check call, turn. And I'm actually probably going to, well, that was a back card. I was probably going to value bet the river there. He shows 10s down. If it would have came at 9-6, then I would have value bet the river there. And you could see he's playing, I got, you know, just real passive, trying to trap me basically and let me spew my chips off to him. Right here, I'm just going to check it behind. Probably calling a turn, and so it's going to check a bunch, and he's bet out on the river a couple times, and I've given up. I don't know. I don't expect him to take a shot at that one. If the question is, would I call a river and a river bet here? And I think probably not. No, I wouldn't have. But my hand is good. I would assume he had ace high, small pair. Yeah, he had 4s there. Some hand that he thought he had showdown value against my range. And he thought about that river, which is pretty interesting. I don't know if he thought about betting as a bluff there, or what his exact thoughts were. But that's interesting to note that he did hesitate, and it could just be because he's multi-tabling. He bet 18 into 35. And I'm just going to pitch it. You know, it's real easy to fall into the trap of giving players like this just too much action heads up, and a lot of guys will do it, but you just really have to play things close to the vest until they do something that would otherwise indicate you to mix it up. Alright, 8-5, open it up. Alright, he limps. I'm going to raise him up. I'm actually going to raise it up to 21. Something that just makes my bet sizes up just for looks like guys, I've lost a little bit of my internet connection. I'm gonna have to pause the video and see if I can fix this. Sorry. All right, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm hooked up to a router here, and I do my videos in a different room. Usually I'm hooked up to a LAN, but in this particular case, when I do my videos, I am hooked up to wireless, and my network, my wireless card or something's messed up with it, and it kind of flickers at times. So again, I apologize for that. But the Queen 10 hand, yeah, raised it up 21. It was a flop. I'll probably not see betting against most guys, but against this particular player, I think it's fine. On the turn, the 6 rolls off, which is just a really nasty card. I don't think I have really any fold equity. So I decided just to pitch the hand. Alright, Queen 6, just limping. Check folding this flop. Again, just giving up on the hand. I'm not contesting this pot. I would expect to see king or ace high from him. Yeah, he had ace high. Alright, firing off, continuation bet here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to be checking behind on pretty much any turn. And going to be planning on value betting the river since I've played so many hands like that. And see if he won't let me up light. Alright, if he lamps here with king 3 suited, I'm going to raise him up. He may have, that may be it. He may have just, nope, I thought he may have quit me. I guess he just had action on other tables. I'm going to check this behind. This is kind of a spot where if he leads out, I'm probably going to pop him. And this is kind of a delayed continuation bet. If you'd have called that turn, I think I'd have value bet. I'd have value bet a queen river and you know, a diamond, and probably have a bluff if you as well. Non-heart rivers. And the reason I wouldn't bluff hearts, I really don't think that the villain would put me on that hand, and it looks like a card I would bluff, so I think he's more likely to call me there. Since I did check the flop behind. If a 9 came off, I would definitely value bet that too on the river. I'm going to get re-raised. I got 6-10. I'm pitching it. He limps. I'm going to jack him up with the king jack. Alright, this is a flop I'm not going to contest. I'm not going to fire C-bet it here. This really hits his range, his limp calling range. And yeah, he's going to get a cheap bluff at it, but I think he'll bet marginal hands there, and I'll mix in a few check raises. I do have some made hands on boards like that. Alright, deuce 10, I'm just going to check it. I'm actually just going to fire off a small bet here. Alright. Again, making a C-bet. He calls. Turn rolls off a 9, and I'm going to fire again here. I take it down, which is a good result. As you can see, aggression and heads-up poker, and really poker in general, really is it's such a valuable tool. Alright, 10-6. I'm going to raise him up. Bet 26 and a 35. Continuation bet. He calls me, and I've double barreled him before, but this is a bad card for his range, and he's starting to feel pretty light. So I'm firing again. I take it down. If you'd have called me on that turn, I would have definitely probably barreled the river. I'm bet 25 and a 35. He calls. Since I've really had the heat on him, I don't think he's folding anything here, and I'm likely probably to get check raised all in, so I'm just going to check it behind. And you know, he's checked a lot of hands here, so I'm just gonna check, and hopefully my hand will be good, and he'll have a busted draw at 7-6. But that's right about where I had him pegged, and I definitely don't think he would have folded the turn, so I like my play. Alright, he insta min raises me here. And what's pot? Pot's 192s. Well, 166. I'm really tempted to 3-bet this guy. And I think I'm going to. I'm going to raise it up to 166. It's insta min raise. And he shoves on me. You know, this may be results oriented, but he really hasn't contested anything. He's only min raised to flop once, and I've been so aggressive. He's looking to fight back at me, and really he's not fighting back. He's just waiting until he flops hands. So I don't particularly like my play there. Although, you know, I will 3-bet guys there because you keep thinking, and this is kind of the mindset I'll get into. You know, I've been pounding on the guy. He's got to fight back at some point. Well, some particular players just aren't going to. And this may be one of those. I mean, his aggression's really low, so I don't. I think my 3-bet there is not good. I'm gonna check this, and I'll be value betting the river. He bets 30. You know, this is a king or just air here. All right, I'm actually gonna look him up. He shows an 8. Yeah, it was, you know, the nuts are air there. Again, maybe I could have folded that one. You know. But I don't think it's too bad. He's just a guy, he hasn't shown down too many bluffs, so I gotta stay with my read. And, just not show down too many hands to him. Alright, I bet 25 into 35 here, and I take it down. Actually, I'm going to bet 25 into 35, just a continuation bet. That's not necessarily a good board, but he, you know, again, the villain's not contesting many pots, so I can fire off at these boards, and I'll continue to do so. Whoops. I think he min raises me. I'm just going to give it to him. I've been playing real aggressive, so I may actually slow it down now. You know, I'm playing 59, 58, or yeah, 59, 57. So I may tone it down a bit. Alright, firing off a continuation bet. I'll be checking this one behind, and betting the river for value. He can definitely check a king on this river. Also, I think he'll check, you know, he's definitely checking 7s, 4s. I expect my hand to be good since he hesitated. It is. He had 8s. I've thought about racing this one up, but I've been playing so aggressive, I think we need to slow the pace down. Alright, he min bets again, and I'm probably going to lead the river here for value. If he raises me, I'm going to fold it. I expect my hand to be good. Yeah, he had a weaker 8, which is kind of right where I had him pegged. I don't think he pays me off in that river with a 7. Alright, flop 2 pair here. This is a hand I'm definitely going with. Just hope he min raises me, which I expect this is pretty much a hand he's willing to fail with every time. So I'm gonna raise it up to 166 and see if I can't get it in here. That's the first time he's check raised to flop. Yeah, he went with a hand, and he has king queen, so I'm in pretty good shape here. And it holds. My hand is good. And that's kind of the problem you get when you play like this particular player has, that I can really kind of have a really good feel for where he's at most of the time. So, his check raise there, I'm just not going to be felt in many weaker hands. Ace queen is probably the weakest one pair hand I felt there. Already calls. I've been beating up on him. He's probably, he just got felted. So, I'm not going to, I would be value betting queen or jack on this river, but I'm not contesting the pot further. Guys, after you stack them once, or you've been beating on them, they'll, or much more likely to make light call downs or crazy raises. So, I usually try to maintain the pace, or keep the pace of the match going pretty slow right after a couple big pots. All right, 3-7. I'm going to raise it up. On 5-7, I'm just going to check it again. I'm going to probably check here. He bets turn. I'll check raise him. He pots, which is kind of interesting actually. But he check a flush draw behind. Question is, what weaker hands pay me off here? I'm actually just going to check call and check call most rivers, including this one. He bets 18, which screams a value bet. I'm getting a decent price here. I think he checks a jack on this river, and he may not be value betting too many flushes. So I think he's probably checking low flushes. But I think I have to call here, given the price that I'm getting. It's 7-8. That's unfortunate. Alright, I'm just going to lead out here for 6. And he calls pretty quick. And I'm just going to check and give up with the hand. Yeah, and he didn't value bet the king there. He played that really passively. Unbelievably passive. But, again, that's why there was no sense in me firing. I mean, he would probably call all 3 streets there, so there's really no sense in me firing unless I improve. And that's kind of the spot, he's run himself into. Alright, yeah, jack 9 suit, I'm going to raise it up. But the big things with heads up is, control and tempo, and that's something I've really gotten, I think, personally, I've gotten a lot better at. The past couple months, I've been playing a decent amount heads up, not a whole bunch, but a decent amount. But I've really been working on my heads up game, playing one and two tables of heads up and focusing and trying to get better. So I think that was an area where I was lacking. All right, well, I'm gonna play a few more hands and then call it quits. We'll look at some hands in Poker Tracker. King 9-8 flop. Not gonna contest him. Just gonna try to check down my ace high here. If he bets anywhere, I'm gonna be giving up. Ace rolls off. I'll value bet. Otherwise, he bets 30, and I'm just going to fold it. And I really think with this particular player, my 3-bet with that was very poor. And it's really easy to get spewy heads up, and that's really what I did with that 3-bet. And my other call down where I called him and he value bet me was pretty close, but I'll stop it. Here after this hand, we'll open up some hands in PT and check them out. All right. Alright, so we played 22 hands, and I ran at, here, I'll scoot it over here and extend it a little further. Alright, so we played 22 hands, and I ran at 58, 57, which is pretty aggressive. However, I think the pace of this match and the way he was playing really dictated an aggressive play. My total aggression was super high, but he wasn't contesting many pots, so it allowed me to do that. Position stats, yeah, I raised 92% of my small blinds, which is, a bunch. Usually I'm raising, I guess, 78%, something like that. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest with you. But, since he was being so passive out of position and wasn't contesting many flops, you can see my one money when saw the flop from the small blind is really an overwhelming 67.5% of the time. And that's a pretty big leak in that particular player's game. We'll look at some biggest losers. We'll start with those, which is this Queen 5 hand. I'll have to move this out of the way to actually open up the hands. And this was really early on in the match before the video, and I had no real read on the villain. And this is not, excuse me guys, that's not the one where I lost a big pot. Alright, here it is. This is really early on in the match. He had limped a few times, and I'd raised him and taken it down. So I expected, in a normally aggressive match, the guys are really going to start floating and pilling. Your flop bet's really wide, and this is a good flop to float because it doesn't really hit my range much. So, really on the turn here, I'm check raising them all in for value. If I'm behind, I do have some outs. So I check, and it's pretty standard hand. He bets 54. Pot size raise would have been like 277, 280-ish, I believe. So it was committing. So I just went ahead and moved in. And it's unfortunate he had a flush and he won that one. But and I didn't improve. But I like my play there. Let's see what the other. This 9-8 suited is a hand that I really think well, I didn't pull it up. Excuse me. I really think this is just really poor against this guy, in my opinion. I'm not exactly sure why I actually did it. This is a play that I do make a lot because, I'm very capable of 3-betting here with Aaron against a guy whose flop aggression is high and is an aggressive player. I like it. It's a play I make often and the reason I do make it against an aggressive player, they're not very likely. I think this min raise it's weighted towards a bluff pretty heavily because most guys will play like a pair of jacks or a pair of aces there. They're not going to be raising you on the flop. They're going to play it more for a pot control. So it's basically monsters, and since he limped on the button, which this particular guy we obviously can't discount aces, jacks, or ace jack because I think he would limp all those. But it's just he's just not passive enough, and I've been pounding on him. My logic at the time was he's got to fight back at some point. Well, it doesn't look like he's the type to fight back. That fights back very often. Sorry about that, guys. I accidentally hit the stop button mid-sentence there. Let's go back to this hammer. Okay. I hit the stop button at the bottom left of my screen here on Cam Studio, and it just X'd out of the video. But pretty much to recap this, I think my play here is pretty terrible. He's just not raising enough to make this play profitable. There are not enough bluffs in his distribution of hands to make just don't have enough fold equity. You think guys are going to fight back with this particular player. He's shown throughout the match that he just wasn't doing it, and he was only playing hands for value. All right, we'll look at some other spots. This Queen 10 suited hand that I played, it's a pretty straightforward hand. He opens up on the button. This could, against a guy who's opening for really, really light, or excuse me, really, really strong opening range, and is limping so much, when his range would be polarized, just pretty much monsters here. I might actually fold this pre-flop, but I think this particular player, we can't definitely say that. He obviously is limping a bunch on the button, but he's also limping strong hand, so I'm not really sure what to make of his open here. So I like to call. The flop comes down, queen 5 deuce. He checks, I check, he checks. This is usually for pot control, so now on the turn I'm going for just 2 streets of value here, and bet the turn he calls. River comes to jack of clubs, and I think that's a good card for me to value bet. I think he'll look me up light, because it's probably a good card to bluff in his mind. And he shoves, so once he shoves over me there, it's a pretty easy, pretty much a turbo fold. This guy's, again, like the 9-8 suited hand, he's not running enough bluffs to look him up here. So I pitch it. And the big pot, really, we only played one, other than the queen 5 offhand that we discussed earlier. The biggest pot I won was the queen 4 hand, which is, well, that's clearly not it. It's definitely not the biggest pot I won. Which is this hand right here. Pretty standard hand. Open up queen 4 on the button and flop top and bottom. He checks to me and I see bet. He min raises me. He hadn't min raised me on the flop not a single time the entire match. So I assume this is the hand that he's going with, and it's pretty much just what's the best way to get all the money in here. And I think on this flop, he may shut down. There's a lot of scare cards that'll come on the turn that can shut him down. So I just like to go ahead and 3-bunt it. I think that's the best way to build a pot and get the money in. I do, and he shoves over the top, and my hand holds. And I guess I'd reckon I have probably 3-to-1 equity against this hand there. And, well, obviously on the river, I've got a little better than 3-to-1. I've got 100%. Yeah, and I've got actually slightly less than 3-to-1. But we didn't really play a lot of big pots, and this is the next biggest pot we played. He was just not contesting many pots, wasn't playing many big pots. So it's pretty much, I was able to just whittle him down and just grind him down. Just shows you've got to contest pots, and you got to get after. You can't just play the nuts and heads up poker, or people will run you over. And this is the next biggest pot that we played that I won. It's just me flopping 2 pair and just trying to get 3 streets of value, and he folds it on the river, which is unfortunate, but not a bad result. Again, that's about it for this video. To recap, the reason I played heads up, it really gets really allows you to see how I'll go about making a read on a specific player and how I'll change my range and adapt my play. Whereas if I was doing a 6 max table, there's much less interaction between the players. It's a much more information sparse environment, whereas Heads Up No Limit has more information, so that allows me to do different things and formulate a read. I mean, poker's a pretty basic math game once you have enough information to plug in the numbers, but the key the key variable is what is the player's range and how to identify it. How you go about identifying that is what separates good players from great players. So I hope y'all learned something from this video, and I'll see you in the forums.